Obviously, he's misinformed 2 years later about the law and our election processes, which ensure the integrity of elections in Clark County and the state.
So you're getting that kind of pushback because it obviously we know how this misinformation spreads and the truth never catches up online. And when Donald Trump puts this out there, Peter, it leads to all sorts of suspicions. We saw this stupid circus of the Arizona audit and all the time and money that was spent on that and the confusion in the public mind. There's no fraud going on or no appreciable fraud or miscounting going on in the normal processes in Arizona and Nevada. They just do it very slowly.
Yeah, they do it slowly, and it's a little frustrating, I think, for everybody. So it does, of course, lend itself to people like Trump who want to spread unfounded conspiracy theories. And I think that that's an issue that those states obviously need to think about in terms of making sure their credibility is protected against that kind of those kind of lies. But look, Donald Trump has never cared much about facts. Facts don't matter to him. He basically posits whatever reality suits his needs at the time, and that's the reality that he's choosing to posit there now. He'd rather stir suspicion and uncertainty in order to justify his own defeat in 2020. He doesn't want to admit that he lost. That the more he can say the system is broken, the system is awash in corruption and fraud, the more he can justify the fact that he lost to Joe Biden, which is something he's had a hard time accepting. And that's it's also setting the stage for 2 years from now. But one of the things that's really striking, Andrea, is not only did a lot of election deniers go down to defeat, a lot of the people who did go down to defeat accepted the results. They accepted the verdict of the voters, and they did not, in fact, echo Donald Trump's claims of some sort of perfidy here. They accepted the system as it is because, in fact, there was no massive fraud, there was no massive corruption. And I think that they are breaking away from Trump in their own way as well. Yeah, you saw John Bolduc in New Hampshire, Lee Zeldin in New York, Mastriano in Pennsylvania. None of these people are denying that they lost. You had concessions in a lot of these races. Did Tudor Dixon also concede to Gretchen Whitmer? I think she did.
She did.
So let's explain the help me here. DeSantorium.
DeSanctimonious.
I can't even catch up with it. So let's explain it better than I have with Ron DeSantis' wife tweeting out this ad titled "God Made a Fighter." Let's watch.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a protector. So God made a fighter, someone who challenges conventional wisdom and isn't afraid to defend what he knows to be right and just. So God made a fighter.
So, Ashley and Peter, that's why Trump called him DeSanctimonious. It was that ad that triggered that Donald Trump response, Ashley. Yeah, it's pretty it was amusing.
It was that ad and it wasn't that ad. The DeSanctimonious specifically came from that ad, but Donald Trump has been bothered by the pretty clear ascent of Ron DeSantis for quite some time now. Trump's people have long denied it up until recently. DeSantis's people have also sort of said nothing to see here. But Donald Trump had been workshopping nicknames and ways to kind of bring Ron DeSantis, in his view, down a peg for quite some time, because this is how Donald Trump responds to someone who he believes is a threat, is with sort of bullying, public trashing, and of course, a famous nickname.
And Peter, to switch gears, I just wanted to catch up with your reporting also about Ukraine, Vladimir Putin, and decisions within the administration, decisions and dissent, which they've been denying, that General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, of course, is urging diplomacy by Ukraine sooner rather than later, looking ahead to a very tough winter and the carpet bombing by Russia, and White House advisors pushing back. What can you tell us?
Yeah, exactly. And these internal discussions happening at the White House right now, General Milley, who is the top military advisor to the President of the United States, is pushing for the idea that diplomacy is better sooner rather than later. His point is that they are going to sort of reach a stalemate line for the winter, in his view. He's pointed to satellite imagery showing Russians digging trenches and so forth. And therefore, that his argument is that the Ukrainians, who have done spectacularly better than anybody expected on the battlefield lately, should go ahead and try to cement those wins at the negotiating table, try to find a way to end the slaughter of all these people at a time when they are at their strongest. But there's a lot of pushback, or at least a lot of doubt, at the White House, where I think they would like a negotiated solution at some point down the road, but they believe it's too soon right now. Jake Sullivan, the president's national security advisor, said yesterday to reporters, we're not pressuring Ukraine. That's what we really want to make sure they're not seen doing. They do not want to be seen as pressuring Ukraine. And they think that General Milley is getting too far out in front right now.
And one final footnote, political footnote here, which I should have mentioned. Ashley, you've got a bunch of state legislatures, key legislatures, first of all, in Michigan, where Gretchen Whitmer had so much success, and they flipped the legislature to Democratic from Republican, and they're on the verge of doing that in Pennsylvania. This becomes hugely important going forward, especially with 2024.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And in Michigan specifically, it was a real success story for Governor Whitmer. She won a big election victory against a Trump-endorsed sort of MAGA election denier in Tudor Dixon. And she lifted on her coattails just about everyone down the ballot and flipped both the Michigan House and the Senate Democratic for the first time in 40 years. So people are now looking at her as a likely next generation leader, in part because she will be able to accomplish, they think, so much more with finally full Democratic control throughout the state.
And she did it despite the kidnap attempt, the murder threat, the death threats, the takeover briefly of the state capitol. I mean, she just emerges successfully as a standout Democratic leader.